For anyone under the age of 25, and certainly for other age groups, much of life is lived through smartphones, tablets, and on social media. On this episode, we are asking the question, at what cost?
It takes away from so many things in my life.
We are only just beginning to understand the impact social media and smart devices have on the mental and emotional health of young people whose brains are still developing. I know this is an issue that is top of mind for many of you parents.
When he does not have access to social media or his phone, he gets very agitated. He gets very angry. He has what I would call a teenage temper tantrum.
Social psychologist, NYU professor, and best-selling author Jonathan Haidt is on a mission to reach parents not only about his belief of the harmful effects of smartphones and social media, but also to help them take action now to prevent potential long-term damage in their children.
It is urgent that you restore your brain. You're still young, but if you do this until you're 25, then the damage might be permanent.
Jonathan's New York Times bestseller, The Anxious Generation, How the Great Rewiring of Childhood is Causing an Epidemic of Mental Illness, digs into the skyrocketing mental health crisis in young people.
We have to change the way we're raising kids. We have to give them back an exciting, fun childhood in the real world, not on a screen.
Jonathan Haidt joins us. Thank you for joining me from your office at NYU. Hello.
Hello, Oprah. How nice to be back talking with you.
Yeah. So this book has been on the New York Times bestsellers list now for 1 year. And I would say it's because it's resonating. And anytime I run into parents who are talking about I don't know, what are we going to do about all these phones? I go, have you read The Anxious Generation? So many people have read it. What do you think it is that's kept it on the New York Times bestsellers list and has kept you running from one seminar to the next talking about this?
Oh, well, thanks, Oprah. It's very easy to answer that question. The answer is that all over the world, all over the developed world at least, family life has become a fight over screen time. It wasn't like this in 2010. I mean, we fought over television a little bit, but it's once our kids all got iPads, iPhones, social media apps, and that all happened around 2012. It's been a fight over screen time. We all hate it. We're all feeling trapped. We're all looking for a way out. And I think that's why the book has been a bestseller around the world.
Okay. So what's going on with the teens who are basically addicted? Would you say that there is an addiction problem?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Let me share with you two horrific stats. And you might expect this to be the suicide stats that you and I talked about last time. Up 50% for adolescents since 2010. Up 140% for younger teen girls. Those are horrific. But there are two other numbers I can't get out of my mind. One is 48%, which is the percentage of our adolescents in America who say that they are online almost constantly. The phone is always in their hand. They're always checking it. Even if they're talking with you, they're thinking about what's on the phone. They are checked out of life. They're never fully present. They're almost constantly involved in social media. That's one number. 48% of our teens that's happened to. And then what I just found yesterday, which I can't believe, but here it is, 40%. That's the number of 2-year-olds in this country who have their own iPad, which means that in the last few years, what that means is that Americans, and it's the same thing in Britain, I know, Americans have basically realized, hey, if I just give the kid an iPad, I can have some peace. I can check my email. I can make dinner. And we're using it as a babysitter. So yes, you ask me, is it addiction? Yes. From the age of 2 all the way through the teen years, at least half our kids are hooked, I would say addicted.
Wow. And according to the CDC, 11 to 14-year-olds are spending up to 9 hours a day on their screens. And you call this the great rewiring of childhood. What impact, you just said it's addiction, but what impact is all this screen time having on young minds? I'm blown away by that 2-year-old statistics.
Yeah, right. I think the best way to understand it is for older people, at least if you were, say, 35 years old or older, you probably grew up playing outside with friends. You had some freedom. And so I'd like everyone watching, think back about the most exciting, wonderful things that you did as a kid. What are your best memories? Okay, now let's go through it and let's see what it's like for that half of our kids who are online almost all the time. What's it like for them? So did you ever laugh with your friends? Do you ever share a laugh with your friends? Of course. I just did a quick calculation before we talked here. Somewhere between 200,000 times and 1,000,000 times is probably about the number of laughs that we shared with a friend. Imagine cutting that by 90%. Take 90% of it out of your child's life because they don't see their friends very much. And typing LOL is not the same as laughing hysterically with your friends. Did you ever look out a car window and just daydream? Did you ever do? Of course we did. We all did that. Okay. Imagine taking out 100% of that because now as soon as the kid gets in the car, they have a device. They're on the device the whole way.
That's right.
Did you ever play outside? Cut 70% of that. Did you ever read a book? Cut 60% of that. Did you ever have a hobby? Cut 80% of that. So when our kids are online about 8, 10, 12 hours a day, there isn't time for anything else. It pushes everything out of childhood. And that is a sad childhood. We've got to stop this.
Yeah, I read an article recently about the college kids arriving in school now. Many of them have not actually ever completed a book, which was, it was so startling to me, you know? You didn't have to actually read a book. You read sections of a book or portions of a book, or you got this online, you know? I find that really to be incredible.
Well, that's right. And the last time you and I spoke, we focused on mental illness, anxiety, depression, and we're going to talk a lot about that today. That's really, really important. But what I've learned since you and I last spoke is that I think an even bigger harm that happened to our kids is the destruction of their ability to pay attention. Because we're not just talking about 10, 20% of the kids. We're talking about most of them. I teach at New York University, very smart kids here in the business school. A lot of them say they have a lot of trouble reading. As one of my students said, I read a sentence, I get bored, I take out TikTok.
Wow.
That's the way it's always been. TikTok has always been there for them. And it's always more entertaining than whatever reading I could assign to them. So yeah, their attention is fragmented, shattered.
So you also believe, you say in the anxious generation, which should be in every parent's home, whether your kids are 2 or 12 or 15, you believe that parents are overprotecting their children in the physical world, you say, or real world, while underprotecting them online. And why should this sound an alarm for the parents who are listening to us right now?
Yeah, because look, we all want to protect our kids. I have a daughter, 15, and a son, 18. We all want to protect them, but we've got to protect them from the right things. When you and I were growing up, Oprah, there was a crime wave. There was real danger, but kids still played outside. It didn't usually hit the kids that much. So kids still played outside. All kids played outside. And when we were together, we were safe. Since you and I were kids, the crime rate has plummeted. It's much safer now. There's much less drunk driving. So, and child molesters, we started locking them up. We didn't used to lock them up when you and I were kids. We thought they were just eccentrics. So the physical world, the real world, is actually safer than it was 40, 50 years ago. Crime went way down in the 90s. Where did all the child molesters go? They went onto Instagram.
Yes,
because that's
Lord.
where it's really, really easy to talk with children and to ask them for a photograph, and maybe a photograph of them in their bikini. And before you know it, you have a naked photo of them and you can
Or show us
them.
your stomach, or show us your this, or show us any body part. That's where they all are.
Exactly. So what I'm trying to say is that we've got to lighten up, loosen up, let our kids out into the real world where it's actually much safer. And that's where children need to develop. They need to play with each other in person. And we've got to tighten up on the online world where there are lots of strangers talking to your child if she's on social media.
Jonathan, you said giving social media to teenage girls is like handing them a gun. I think that is so potent. How do young women use social media differently than young men?
Yeah. So first, let's just look at how young women and young men are socially. Girls are much more interested in their relationships. They need a few good friends. They talk a lot. Boys don't talk as much. Boys do things together in larger groups. And so social media, it has been completely devastating for girls because the way a friendship develops is you share secrets, you talk one-on-one, you talk in a small group, you gossip. But on social media, it's this giant conversation. People are performing. They're not really connecting. And this is happening in middle school, especially at a time when girls are just beginning to develop. They're just starting puberty. They're very self-conscious about their bodies. And what are people talking about? Your face, your hair, your boobs, your skin. It's so sad to me how it pushes girls to be sexual and shallow. I just opened an account on Snapchat because my daughter wants Snapchat. So I opened an account for myself, pretending to be a 14-year-old boy. I can't believe what it makes the girls do. It's disgusting. And so if you're going to go through puberty on Snapchat or Instagram or TikTok, it's going to be bad for girls. Now, for boys, it's not as emotionally damaging, but boys get sucked into crazy, destructive behavior. And it's things like, let's attack some kid so that we can get a video of it and post it. And it's dehumanizing, it's degrading. So this is why I say no kid should be on any of these social media platforms until at least 16. This is just not appropriate for children. You cannot make this stuff safe for children.
You were saying that though you went on Snapchat as a 14-year-old. Your daughter is 15. So is your daughter your daughter's on Snapchat?
No, she is not. I will not let her on Snapchat. What I've seen is so disgusting. It's not pornography. I'm not seeing pornography. But what I'm seeing is that it makes the girls all pose in this sexy, semi-porn way. It just pushes the girls to be shallow and sexy.
So
there's no way I'm letting my daughter on Snapchat. Oh, and also Snapchat keeps pushing me to connect with people I don't know.
And that's how you get in the...
That's how you start talking to adults in other countries who want money or sex from you.
That's right. Okay, since we have Jonathan here, we wanted to hear from parents and from teens. Carrie, she says her 17-year-old son, Nick, spends 10 hours a day on his phone, even watching videos in the shower. Wow, Nick, I didn't know you could bring the phone in the shower, but apparently...
I didn't either.
Yeah, it's turned into like an issue. Whenever like I go to take a shower, I end up with the phone in the shower. So,
because you can't be without the phone long enough to shower.
I guess I can. I just like the attention span. I like to watch the videos. They're interesting to me.
Okay. So for Carrie, let's hear from you. What concerns you most about Nick's phone usage? Thank you both for being here, by the way. Thank you, Nick, for joining.
Well, thank you for having us. Thank you and gratitude for having us and letting us talk to Jonathan and yourself about this. What concerns me the most is really the mental health issue. Anxiety, depression, especially depression, is very prevalent in our family on both sides, my husband's side and my side. Mm-hmm. Addiction is also huge in our family. And my main concern is that this addiction to the phone will turn into an addiction of something else, drugs, alcohol, pornography, all of the things that could be available. We were talking about him being in the shower with it. I realized last summer he was coming in from cheer practice and I was in the kitchen. The garage is right off the kitchen. And I could hear the Instagram reels going. And it's literally a 20-foot maybe walk from his car into the kitchen. And he couldn't be not entertained for that amount of time. So I, in passing, said something to our 20-year-old daughter, Molly. I said, hey, do you know your brother? Like, I'm starting to see that this might be a problem. And she goes, Mom, he's in the shower and he's got the Instagram, the reels going, and he's got the TikToks going and all of this. And that's when I was like, this is a real problem.
Nick, do you think you're addicted? Do you think you have a problem?
Oh, yes, 100%. 100% there's a problem.
Okay. That's a good start. That's a good start. Is it, Jonathan, a good start?
That's a very good start. If he sees that there's a problem, then it's going to definitely be possible to solve it. Carrie, you're absolutely right to worry about his mental health. Now, For girls, the connection between social media use and depression anxiety is much stronger. It sounds like, Nick, are you suffering from depression or anxiety right now, or is that not really your issue now?
That's not really an issue right now, I wouldn't say.
Right. Okay. Because what I see happening is we focused a lot on social media and girls because that's a very strong connection. That's really devastating the girls. And it took me a while to realize while I was writing the book that the story for boys is actually very different. And addiction is at the center. So, Carrie, Nick, do you know the word dopamine? Do you know what dopamine means, the neurotransmitter?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. So,
It's the high you get from watching the videos.
well, so what it really is, what dopamine is, it's said to be the reward neurotransmitter because it makes us feel good. But the key thing is it's the motivation neurotransmitter. So when you do something and then you get a reward, you then are motivated to do it again. And then you get the reward and you dig yourself deeper and deeper. And if you do it a lot, your dopamine neurons adapt. They're trying to get back to a normal level. So they become less sensitive to dopamine. So now you need more and more dopamine. So Nick, what happens if you are separated from your phone for an hour or two? Is that no problem, or do you start to feel something?
I feel like I can go an hour or two. I would say it's more of like the longer hours without it.
Okay, what happens to you when you go hours without it?
Like I just want to sit there and just like watch a video. I don't necessarily like I want something to entertain me.
Mm-hmm. Okay, well, good. So
I
this
saw
is
Carrie
very-
shaking her head. Carrie, yeah, go ahead. Carrie.
When he when he does not have access to social media or his phone, he gets very agitated. He gets very angry. He has what I would call a teenage temper tantrum. He cannot go hours without a phone. We went on a cruise last summer and he was miserable the whole time because he didn't have access to the phone if we weren't on land.
Wow. Can I ask you, but don't you have to be without it in school? Because hasn't Florida banned the phones in schools?
They have on paper banned the phones in schools. I think he can tell you.
Yeah.
Yeah, they've banned it like by law, but it's really like a school to school basis. Every school is different. So for majority of the schools, I believe, it's our electronics that we get, ThinkPad services. Some schools even get MacBooks. They just start to break down because they're so old and they're so overused.
The issue is the technology is not good. And so they have to get on their personal electronics in order to complete the classwork, because everything is online,
Okay.
even when
So,
they're
yeah.
in person.
That's a separate issue, which is a very serious issue, which is that all of this ed tech, all of these screens in front of students, it turns out is really bad for their education. Test scores have been dropping around the world since 2012 in part because of the educational technology. But let's get back to the question of addiction, because Nick, what you said, I was about to say, oh, good, well then it's not really addiction, it's just a habit. But what Carrie said tells me that you are addicted, your brain is addicted. And here's how I know, because Anna Lemke, one of our country's foremost experts on addiction, she wrote the book Dopamine Nation. She says the 5 universal symptoms of withdrawal from an addictive substance, this is what happens to addicts when you take away the drug for a day. Here are the 5. Irritability, insomnia, dysphoria, craving, and anxiety. And it sounds like you've got most of those, which tells me that your brain is dependent on constant stimulation. Are you able to read a book? Can you read a whole book, like, an hour at a time paying attention, or is that hard for you?
I can read a book. I wouldn't say I can read the whole book, but I can read a majority of
He
it.
cannot
but
read a whole hour at a time. Absolutely not. He cannot.
Okay. So Nick, what I'm gonna recommend for you is what I'm just drawing from what the experts say is if this is a dopamine issue, and clearly it is, then the way to break it is to go a month without it. You have to go through detox. The first few days, the first week will be hard, but then what you're going to find, and this is what my students at NYU find, your life opens up. You can pay attention. You have more time in your day. You experience things. So if you can find a way, the two of you working together, ideally you could start it if you can take a vacation somewhere. If you could send him to some sort of summer thing for a week or two or a month, summer camp or some experience, that really helps. So make the real world interesting as possible. But what would really help you is going a month to let your brain reset itself to a normal setting.
I
Is
see.
that
I see his
doable, do you
face,
think?
though, Jonathan. When you say a month, can you imagine? He can't be without it for an hour. So the idea of a month feels like punishment, feels like torture, feels like how in the world is he going to do that? Are you getting anxiety even hearing this, Nick? Like you're going to be disconnected
little
from the
bit.
world, disconnected from
Yeah,
the
a little
world,
bit.
disconnected from your friends and what that means, and all of that.
Nick, do you think
I
you
mean,
could do
I
that,
think-
or is that impossible?
I wouldn't say it's impossible. I feel like it would take a lot out of me. It would take everything out of me to do it.
That's right.
Okay.
It would.
Okay,
This is
can I
like
ask this,
any
Jonathan?
added-
Can I interrupt?
ahead.
Is it like other addictions where you have to hit rock bottom, or at least reach a place where you see? I mean, in the beginning, Nick says he realizes that he's an addict and has a problem, but maybe he doesn't think the problem is enough to actually cause him long-term problems and doesn't understand the consequences of the long-term problems. So until you actually realize that this is dangerous to my brain and my mental health, why do you need to give it up?
Yeah, that's right. That's the way to think about it. So, Nick, let me ask you a question. Do you want someday to get married? Do you want to have a girlfriend and a wife or a spouse? Is that something you want?
Yeah.
Okay. Do you think that a woman would find appealing a man who is on TikTok all day long and is not capable of paying attention?
No. 100% no.
And do you want to have a job someday? Do you want to earn money and support yourself, support a family?
Yeah.
And do you think any employer is going to find it useful to hire someone who can't focus on what they're supposed to focus on and is always on multiple screens and watching videos?
Yeah, no, they don't want that.
They don't want that. So it is urgent that you restore your brain. You're still young. The damage is not permanent yet. But if you do this until you're 25, then the damage might be permanent. Your brain is very flexible still for a few more years. But by 25, the frontal cortex is kind of done changing over to the adult pattern. At that point, it's going to be much harder to get your attention back. So start now.
What will that mean at 25 if he doesn't stop? And what you just said about
So-
the brain.
Yeah. So think about like learning languages. You know, we can learn a language without an accent before we're 13 because what the brain is doing, it's in the child form. It's very flexible. It can become lots of things, and it can become a native speaker of Spanish or Russian or Chinese or anything. But then as you go through puberty, different parts of the brain start locking down, as it were. They start assuming the adult pattern, and there's a kind of a myelin sheath. There's a sheath around the neurons that kind of makes them more efficient but less flexible. And so that's going forward in your brain. And the last part of the brain to lock down is the prefrontal cortex. That's the area that does focus, attention, planning. That is absolutely vital for being an adult. And all over the country, you are not alone. At least half of Americans are giving that up. They're saying, let's let TikTok shape my frontal cortex so I never have to think. If you do that till you're 25, I can't say for sure, but it sure looks like it's going to be permanent.
Because between 25 and 26 is when that prefrontal cortex locks in. That's when you're fully an adult, when the whole brain has been developed after 25, 26, right?
That's right. I mean, it's a gradual thing in your early 20s. So the sooner you start, the better. But by 25, it's locked into adult position, yes.
What do you think of that?
Like when he's saying like everything is on our phones, like our whole lives, like my job is on my phone, how I see when I work, how I communicate with my coaches, how I communicate with like other students. It's all on our phones. How we hang out with each other is online.
That's right.
Because
I think what he's asking is how does he give up the phone when every single thing in his life is attached to it? His job, his school, his friendships.
Yeah, that's right.
That's
the question. And that's why everyone's trapped, because that's true for everyone. We all got sucked into this because we all felt like we had to give our kids a phone and Snapchat because they say, everyone else has it. I'm left out. And so what we're trying to do, what my team and I are trying to do, is get everyone to realize we're trapped. And Nick, you realize that you're trapped. And the way to escape from a social trap is together. So if you could find 3 other families, 3 friends to do this with, and I bet you can, you might think that you don't know 3 where the parents would be receptive, the kid would be receptive, but I guarantee you things are changing fast this year. You will find them. If you can do this with a few friends, and instead of just sitting there swiping, you go out and do fun stuff. You go places with your friends. You can go to an amusement park, go shopping, go to a beach, go somewhere with your friends. The way we
does he
did.
replace the smartphone with the flip phone? Is that
Yes. Oh, thank you, Oprah. Yes. So by all means, talk to your friends. Talking to your friends one at a time on the phone is great. And so a flip phone, a basic phone, that way you and your mom can keep in touch, you and your friends can keep in touch. And now your computer, I'm not saying go without a computer. I understand for work, for school, the computer is essential. But a computer is not as addictive as a touch screen. The touch screen is stimulus, response, reward, infinite loops. Computer's a little slower. It's not quite as addictive. So I'm not asking you to give up communication. You can have a flip phone. I'm not asking you to give up all sorts of other things on your computer. I'm saying it sounds like you're going to need to take a break from your smartphone for a while. There's also a program called Brick. It's a little device. You can block almost every app and just use it for whatever the few apps you need. So there are ways to do that, but I would recommend going cold turkey for a month if you can.
And he will feel in the beginning exactly what addicts feel when they go cold turkey.
Painful.
It will be painful. It will be painful for about a week because of what's going on in his brain, not just him being agitated, but what's actually happening in the brain.
Exactly.
All right, guys. I hope this helps.
It does. Thank you so much.
Something to think about. We'll check in later to see what actually happened. Thank you, Nick. Thank you for being willing to participate. Thank you. Leah is a single mom to a 13-year-old daughter, Estella, and she recently did a deep dive into her daughter's social media accounts, and she was shocked by what she found. Leah, what did you discover? Thank you both for joining us here. Thank you, Leah and Estella.
Thank you so much for providing this space to talk about really hard things.
Yeah.
And Jonathan, for your research and expertise to keep our kids safe, because I'm almost through with the book. And I'm mind blown about everything that you've said. It's just so tough. And I'm honestly kicking myself as a mom for not checking my daughter's phone sooner, but there were no red flags. I mean, she's a great student. She's involved in school and an athlete. But my eyes were opened up in January after Christmas break when I got a call from the principal at school. And she said there was a conversation on Snapchat that happened over holiday break. And I had no idea that these Snapchat conversations could be so mean-spirited. And I was just mind-blown to see, when I took her phone away and went through some of the stuff, I couldn't believe that, people could be so vulgar. And when I say people, I mean kids her age. We're talking 13-year-olds, 14-year-olds, the profanity. I was blown away at just the level of hurt these kids give to one another. But she's going to be in high school in the fall. And so how do I set those healthy boundaries for her to kind of ease back into social media or allow her to be on social media so that she can feel included in this new space of, new students and, a new school, which I'm sure a lot of them will be, on social media.
Yeah, that's right. Wow, there's so much in that question. I'll start with 2 points. One is that you notice the big effect of these platforms, which is they take all of your child's attention. That's the way they're designed. The reason why these companies are worth trillions of dollars, we don't give them any money. It's all because they drilled into our kids' heads. They extracted all of our kids' attention and sold it. So when your kids are on social media, they're not present. They're not really with you. They're gone. And you saw that quite dramatically when you took the phone away for a month. Second point that I think you made, which is very important, is that a lot of the worst stuff is happening when she's alone in her room. That's what I hear. That's when the really bad stuff tends to happen because they feel like they can talk to anyone. It's late at night. So I'll share with you my biggest regret about my own parenting. I was so focused on social media, I didn't really think about the computer. And this was during COVID too. They all had to have a computer. But here's the policy that I wish I had had, and I recommend this to everybody who has young kids especially. No screens in the bedroom ever. No screens of any kind in the bedroom ever do your homework out in the kitchen or the living room. Now, at some point, you might have to relax it and let them take the laptop into the bedroom. But if we establish the idea that your kids can, if they're on these platforms, they have to be at least out in public. They can't be alone in their bedroom. That's where the worst stuff happens. Okay, but now, on to your question. What do you do now that she's entering high school? Of course, you feel like you have to let her back on because everyone else is on. But as our parents used to say to us, if everybody else jumped off the bridge, would you jump off the bridge? This stuff is so bad for girls especially. Social media is so bad for girls that I'd like you to consider keeping her off until 16. And I know that's gonna really sound horrible to Estella. My daughter is 15. I don't let her on. She says she's the only one who doesn't have Snapchat. But she also says that she sees what it does to the other girls. And she says that her friends will text her if there's something important. So she's not completely left out. Now, it's hard.
They will text her because she has a flip phone. They will text her because she...
No, she does have a smartphone. She just does not have social media, as far as I know.
Okay.
I mean, she could be hiding it from me, but it's not on her phone. So is that possible? Do you think you could, if you could especially find a few friends, a few other families who would do the same and keep them off social media, but let them get together in person a lot? Leah and Estella, is that possible?
I think so.
Estella, what are you thinking?
Oh, I think it's possible for that. Yeah.
Yeah. So
you're going to have a much better life. You're going to be happier.
You can have the phone.
You're going to have better friends.
You can have the phone. You can have access to the phone, use of the phone. You can text your friends. You can be in contact with your friends, but you are just not on social media.
That's what I'm recommending.
I did notice too, like when she didn't have her phone, like for at least, 5 or 6 days, that she didn't even want her phone.
So her withdrawal was only a few days, because earlier we were talking with Nick and Carrie, and they were saying that, Nick can't be without his phone in the shower. So obviously, Jonathan recommended also going for a month without the phone. And it seems daunting, I think, at first. But how soon did you notice that that the dopamine hits were eased?
I would say just a few days.
Just a few days.
Noticing her being more attentive. When I'd ask her to do something for me, I didn't have to repeat myself. She was attentive and
present
more
enough
engaged.
to hear it. Yeah, present enough to hear it. Yeah.
Exactly.
Well, you have the book. You've read the book. You've heard the advice. In reading the book, you know how dangerous this is, especially to young girls. And so now you have a choice as to how the both of you will decide to manage it. And I really hope that it works out for both of you. Thank you, Leah and Estella. Thank you both. Mala is a doctor and mom of 3 teenagers. She and her 16-year-old daughter, Uma, are joining us from Toronto. Mala and Uma, welcome, and tell us what's going on.
Dr. Haidt, I was told of your book last year, and I pre-ordered it. And I have to say, first of all, it's groundbreaking, absolutely fascinating to read. But more than anything, it was so validating to me after reading it, just in my own real-world experience with my 3 Gen Z teenagers here at home. The one thing I will say is that I noticed right away how addictive these devices are. As a physician, I'm very conservative. I like rules. We have a lot of rules in this house, as the kids would tell you. But, and I knew one thing. I knew I wanted to wait as long as possible before giving my kids a smartphone. I knew that much. We didn't have this data then, but I knew that. So that was in 2018 with my eldest son. So he was 14 when he got his phone. The second boy was close to 14. And then Uma, being the youngest, was more like 13. And honestly, since that time, it has been an uphill battle every day for the last 5 years or whatever it's been. And my kids have truly lived like a phone-based adolescence, as you described. Conversations at home would be like, what are you guys doing? Are you on your phone? Have you done your homework? Are you doing your homework, or are you on your phone? Have you checked in your phone? We had all those rules. But I think the important thing is with teens, when they get older, it is very hard to control things. They will find a way. Even as younger kids, they find a way. Anyway, so my concern is mainly with my daughter, Uma, who's here. But so she's 16 now and has had social media probably for the last year and a half. And what I've noticed with her is very different from the boys. The boys would always play video games. But with Uma, what I've noticed is in the last year or so, just a change in her attention and her focus. It's very subtle, probably hard to measure, but I think more in terms of school performance, test taking, exam taking, your focus during exams, being able to finish and complete tests and exams. All of these things I feel have really changed.
Did you hear Jonathan earlier, Mala, say that giving a girl social media at a young age is like giving them a gun, that it affects girls very differently than it affects boys? And you've read the book, so you understand that that is true. So what you're experiencing in real time is actually a reflection of everything that Jonathan has done through his research, right? You're now living it. Uma, let me ask you, how do you think it's affecting your mental health?
Yeah, I mean, I think my phone is it's super addictive. I feel like I'm on it all the time, I guess because of the dopamine hits. Sometimes I'll be on it and I feel like I can't get off, even though in my mind, like I know I need to. I feel like it takes away from so many things in my life that I could be doing, things that could make me smarter, like reading or doing my homework or studying, or even things that could make me healthier, like exercising or going outside more. So it's not even just my mental health, but also my physical well-being is impacted by my phone. And yeah, I agree with my mom. I think that it's impacted my focus. I think at school, especially, my concentration is worse. I think my attention span is shorter. And it can impact my sleep too, which then can impact concentration because I'll be on it at night, or sometimes the light will interfere with like my ability to fall asleep. So just all these factors are they're just super detrimental, and I'm observing it not only in myself, but also in everybody around me, just as somebody who's grown up like with the evolution of the phones.
Yeah. So Uma, what you say is very, very perceptive, that it's not always about mental health and anxiety and depression. What you're seeing is actually the biggest effect of all, which is the shattering of the ability to attend to anything. These things are designed to interrupt you, to call you back on. They push you to connect to more people than you want to connect to. And they end up taking 5 hours a day on average. The American teenager spends 5 hours a day just on average. So a lot are spending a lot more than that. If you had 5 extra hours a day, do you think you could learn a foreign language or learn guitar pretty quickly in 5 hours a day for a year?
Definitely.
Do you think you could get into great shape? Do you think you could read all kinds of books? Do you think you could have all kinds of amazing hobbies? And of course you could. 5 hours a day is basically all of your time beyond what you have to do. And so your generation is trapped. Your attention is being sucked out of you, and it is making you less intelligent. What I mean by that is it's not literally lowering your IQ on an IQ test, but it's lowering your ability to perform in the world as if you were smart. So I teach a course at New York University called Flourishing. It's 35 students. They're all undergraduates, around 19 years old. And the goal of the course is to make them stronger, emotionally stronger, smarter, and more sociable. And in the smarter section, I say, we can raise your IQ, your functional IQ, by 15 points. First, regain control of your attention, turn off almost all notifications, move social media off your phone onto your computer, and then get rid of it entirely. If you regain your attention, you are going to perform in this world as if you are much smarter. And if you don't do that, if you give all your time to an interrupting device that's designed to hook you, it's as though you're going to live your life as though you are a much less intelligent person. What do you think about that?
Yeah.
That's fascinating, actually.
Yeah.
Well, that was our question to you, Dr. Haidt. That was our question. You know, is there evidence to suggest that social media use directly impacts intelligence and IQ as measured through school performance, or I don't know how, but that's what we were hoping to find out today.
Yeah. So what I can tell you, and as a doctor, you'll appreciate this, is that there's a lot of correlational evidence. There's not yet a lot of experimental evidence. So we can say that from elementary school on, the kids who are spending a lot of time on screens are doing worse academically, even after you correct for social class and all that stuff. So a lot of correlations. We can also say there's a correlation in that test scores in the United States were going up slowly from the 1970s through 2012. We were doing a little bit better job educating our kids. And then it turns around after 2012. Exactly when all the kids get on smartphones, social media, iPads, Chromebooks in school, exactly when everything gets screen-based, that's when education levels begin going down, not just in the US, but around the world. So we can say humanity is getting less intelligent since 2012, not since COVID, since 2012. I can't prove that it's because of smartphones and social media, but no one can come up with another story for why it started in 2012.
I don't know if you were watching in the beginning of this conversation, but what is going to happen to those 2-year-olds? 40% of people now with 2-year-olds, 40% of them, Jonathan was saying, the new survey shows, are on iPads at 2 years old. What's going to happen to, they're not even going to be able to function in first and second grade with their brains.
That's right. I'm hearing from more and more preschool teachers who say that kids are showing up with language delays, they're not ready for school. A lot of them aren't potty trained yet. So an iPad is not a babysitter. We have used it as a babysitter because it seems to be effective. But you know what? Opium and alcohol would be effective too at calming your child. We shouldn't be using them. So yeah, it is. That's why we've got to change quickly. We don't have 5 years to change this. We have to change this year, 2025. We have to change the way we're raising kids. We have to give them back an exciting, fun childhood in the real world, not on a screen.
Well, thank you, Mala and Uma. Thank you so much. So, Jonathan, here we are. What can parents do right now to help their children escape what you refer to as the smartphone trap?
So let me give you just a couple of suggestions. So one helpful suggestion is to say it's not screens per se. It's not that you have to keep your kid away from every screen. Keep in mind that stories are good things. Humans are a storytelling species. We've always told stories around the campfire. So if you want to watch a movie, a 90-minute movie with your child, or let a couple of kids watch a movie together, that's great. It's social. It's a story. It goes on a long time. But fragmenting time, iPad time, that's not a story. Doesn't build concentration. That builds distraction. And so it's really the private touchscreen, an iPad or an iPhone in a kid's hand. It's constant distraction and interruption. So that should be kept to a minimum. I would say don't even give them their own one until high school, really. You know, you can let them use your iPad on a long car trip, but don't give them their own private iPad or iPhone until they are in high school. You can give them a flip phone earlier or a basic phone watch. So I'm not saying remove all screens from life. You're going to let your kids watch TV sometimes. A TV is much better than an iPad or an iPhone. The other important thing I would want to leave everyone with is, we've talked about this a lot in this session, how important it is to find other families or community or church group or anything to do this with. Because what our kids fear most, they don't fear getting cancer. They don't fear getting brain damage. They fear being isolated. They fear being left out. They fear being made fun of. And so when they feel alone, they panic. And so I'm not saying go out there and tell your kid, I'm taking away your phone and your social media account now, and you're going to disappear from I'm not saying do that. But if you can find a few other families that will do that, this is going to be happening it is happening all over the world now. This is the year, 24-25. This is when the world is waking up to the fact that we cannot raise children on touchscreens. It is damaging their brain development. So we've got to stop. And if we do it together, we can actually do it.
Lindsay and Pete are the parents of a 5th grade girl and a 7th grade boy. They are joining us from Concord, Massachusetts. And I understand you've decided to give phones to your kids when they turn 13. Is that correct?
That's correct, yeah.
But you have some concerns.
One of the things that I've come across in tech, and Jonathan, I'd love your take on anybody's take on this, is with the emergence of generative AI and now that coming into the social media space. How do we think about that as yet another thing to be anxious about for our kids and interacting with?
Yeah, thank you for that, Pete. AI is going to be the biggest technological change in human history, most likely, from what I read and what I hear. And I think it's going to affect our kids in 2 ways. The most immediate effect is that all the addictive parts of the technology are going to get a lot better. The video games are going to be even better at hooking your sons and keeping them there. The social media is going to be even better at sending your daughters and your sons whatever it is that'll keep them going. So all the current problems are going to get a lot worse as AI comes in. Generative AI is going to mean that we're going to be flooded by videos of people, your child might be in a video and it might be her own voice and she might be naked and she had nothing to do with it. It's going to give everybody the ability to make a movie of anyone doing anything and saying anything in their voice. So that's really scary.
That is scary.
The other major problem is that we're already seeing sites like Character AI making AI friends for us. So our kids got suddenly very lonely in 2012. That's when all the loneliness graphs go up. As soon as they move their social life from talking to their friends in person or on the telephone to swiping and posting and commenting, which is not real connection, that's when they got lonely. So what's the cure for the fact that the technology has made our kids so lonely? Oh, I guess the cure is artificial friends who will talk to your child and be very comforting and always there to listen. I can't think of a better way to stunt human development than to surround our kids with the perfect friends. When they hit teen years, it's going to be the perfect boyfriend or girlfriend. They will never be able to actually flirt with or interest or marry another person because they won't be ready for it. So we've got to understand AI is super powerful tools that we adults can use to make hard tasks easy. But we don't want to make life easy for our kids. We don't want to remove the awkwardness of flirting, of approaching a girl or a boy. We want them to experience that awkwardness thousands of times, and they'll get over it. And then they'll be actually good at dealing with people.